Welcome to Safeguarding Our Parishes in the Technology Age. So I know that this has been kind of a different year, to put it quite frankly. Um, and so I really wanted to put this together. I consulted with the bishop and the canon kind of about putting together a webinar for just some basic sort of communicative things that I think all parishes should know, especially as we sort of transition into this half live streamed, half, in person sort of era of worship. Um, oops. So, welcome. We already kind of did introductions, but here's sort of how the basic layout of stuff is going to go. We have 4 topics that we're going to cover. And so throughout the webinar, each session will take about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a 5-minute break halfway through, to stretch, grab a snack. So the 4 things we'll be discussing are internet scams and how to handle them, stopping trolls, and if you don't know what that means quite yet, don't worry, safety features for Facebook and Instagram, and then some copyright basics. So let's get started. Howdy. My name is Virginia Taylor. For those of you who I haven't met, I am the missioner for communications at the diocese. So Bishop Jose actually hired me in February of 2020, and we all know what happened next. So luckily I was pretty tech savvy. Part of why am I qualified to talk to y'all about this? I have a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications and Photography from UNCA. So I'm pretty well versed not only in kind of the photography side of things, but also just general communications when it comes to video and music rights and all of that. I am also Gen Z. So I grew up with this. I've had a smartphone for honestly as long as I can remember. I've had a YouTube channel for far too long, and there's a lot of embarrassing evidence of that on the internet that the bishop has found, unfortunately, and shared with our staff. So if you ever really want some blackmail, that is out there, me dancing to Lady Gaga songs or whatever it is. But I have had a lot of life spent on the internet, and gotten pretty tech savvy in the process. So with that being said, let's get started. So first we're going to talk about internet scams and how to handle them. Maybe a prince from Nigeria just received 30 million US dollars and wants to send them to you. Or even better, he wants your hand in marriage. Or maybe Mel, who's a licensed photographer, says that you've stolen her photos. And the only way that she won't report you is if you click on this very suspicious Google site that, probably, definitely, certainly isn't a virus. Or maybe you've received an email from the Right Reverend Jose A. McLaughlin, officeonline948@gmail.com, asking you to, do you have a moment? I have a request. I need you to handle discreetly. I'm going into a meeting now. No calls. Just respond to my email. So we've probably all been there. We probably all received one of these or a variation of one of these. And don't worry, you're not the only one. So these are all just pretty common scams. So we're going to talk about recognizing these scams, because recognizing scams is the best way to avoid them. Now, as parish administrators or directors of communication, especially dealing with generally the age demographic at a lot of parishes are slightly older, and a lot of scams specifically focus on churches knowing that they have an older demographic who aren't quite as familiar with scams. Knowing and recognizing what is a scam and what isn't is really the best way to avoid them. So we're going to talk about 4 things that you can do to identify scams. And while we're talking about all of this, sort of the biggest overarching point of it all is just, if you're ever unsure, trust your gut, because it's always better to be safe than sorry. All right. So first, we are going to look at the email. So as you can see, we're going to use this lovely email from the Right Reverend Jose A. McLaughlin himself. And that kind of is our example as we go through. And looking at the email, you can see, number one, this isn't Jose's official email. Now, in every instance, you can't always rely on this, but a lot of times with parishes, people have specific email addresses. So, or they're at a certain suite or domain like at dioceswnc.org. So, a couple things that we can kind of note here to identify that it is a scam is that it's not coming from an official suite. It also includes a lot of really random letters and numbers. I once got an email, a scam email, and it was from like user 4897. It went on for the whole length of the email. And immediately I thought to myself, no one could even remember that email address, let alone use it more than once. So a lot of random letters or numbers is usually a good indicator. Also, if it's kind of unrelated or random, so at least when it comes to the bishop himself, he will be using his bishop email. And for the most part, any clergy members will be using their official emails. I often recommend to people to have sort of a business email that is your name, that is your title. That way it helps avoid scams like this. And the last thing is you can see this is a first time sender. So if you haven't ever received an email from this email address before, especially if it's somebody that you quote unquote message regularly, like the bishop, like your wardens, like your vestry members, that's kind of a good indicator. One thing I do recommend to parishes, if they don't already, having a custom suite, so an Outlook suite or a G Suite, so a custom domain such as at dioceswnc.org or at churchofourlord.org is a really, really good way to just make sure that your parishioners can better identify what is a real email from the rector or from the clergy and what isn't. So next up, we are going to look at the language. Now, this email is pretty obvious. Some are a little sneakier than this, but you can definitely see there are some weird things about this email. So first of all, we have email. There are weird capitalizations, and my personal favorite part is sent from my mail Verizon Galaxy smartphone Samsung. So just they really wanted to put all of the phones there just in case. So when you're looking at this, you can really tell there's a lot of weird typos, there's strange spacing, inconsistent capitalization is another pretty good way to tell, especially when you're in a business relationship with somebody or a work relationship with somebody. Having, consistent capitalization is pretty typical. Strange punctuation as well. You can see there are some weird spaces. And last but not least, there's no official email signature. I highly recommend if your parish and clergy and staff don't have an official email signature set up on your accounts to include that. And that way people can tell when they are getting an official email from a staff member, from a clergy member, is because it has their official email signature. Now that can include their logo, it can include their name, usually email and position title. And that's one really good way to just sort of help your parishioners identify when it's a scam account versus not. All right, next is it asks for discretion. So this is a really big thing that you'll probably see in a lot of scam emails, which is just, this should be confidential. This is a surprise. Please don't tell anybody about this. They can't know. And part of why this is such a big thing is scammers really want you to kind of act quickly. They want to make you feel like you have to do it right now and you can't tell anybody about it, so that you don't, tell somebody about it and have them look at this email and say, Virginia, that's clearly a scam. Who would send something from their mail Verizon Galaxy Samsung smartphone? But that's one big way that people really get sucked into these scammers ask you to keep things confidential. They ask you to kind of keep it between you and them. That way nobody finds out that you're involved in a scam. It kind of creates a sense of special privilege too. So especially if you're receiving an email from the bishop and he's asking you to do this special favor, like, what did you do to deserve this special favor? You must be the favorite of the bishop. But it's just another way that it kind of continues to keep the discretion so that people can't uncover the scam. that being said, one thing I always sort of think about too is your rector or your bishop is not going to ask you to do all of these sneaky things. And if you really are, suspicious and wondering, okay, is the bishop really wanting to send gift cards to the whole staff? I would always recommend just giving the office a call. Nobody can get you over the office phone, um, and verifying that just on its own. And last but not least is kind of tied to the last one, the sense of urgency. So you can see in this email, he writes, "Can you get this done and how soon?" This kind of this method sort of gets people to act really quickly without thinking. So one of the prior scams we saw was the copyrighted photos scam. And that's a pretty typical one where the scammer will say, "Okay, you need to, take these down immediately or I'll be pressing charges in the next 24 hours." Or right here, you can say, "Can you get this done? How soon?" It makes you feel like you have to do it right then. It kind of eliminates your ability to step back, look at this and say, okay, this is clearly a scam and I clearly need to just delete this email and move on. Um, so you can see it always asks for an email response as well, rather than a phone call, because they know that it's not the bishop's real email or it's not your rector's real email. And if you really do just call the office, the scam will be uncovered. Alrighty, so we kind of talked about some of these things, but this is just some of the stuff to note. It's just making sure you are really familiar with the email addresses of those that you contact regularly. So those, for example, could be the bishop, your rector, your wardens, any kind of people who are on staff with you, just making sure that you know their correct emails and what emails they'll be sending you emails from is one way to just be really careful. Also, just never give out your personal information if you're at all suspicious. Like I said, it's always better to be safe than sorry. And if somebody really does need your personal information, you'll get a follow-up, or you can call by phone, or you can contact them and work that out. Also, just avoid clicking links in emails that are not from somebody that you recognize. This is a huge thing because the moment you click that link, they can access your computer, they can hack into your email. And the problem is, you think, oh, I'm clicking on the link to figure out if it's a scam. That's the whole point. That's the, that's the scam right there. And like I said, contacting somebody that you trust on the phone is always a good way to get clarification. They're not going to be able to hack you on the phone. So the bad news going forward, when you think about sort of dealing with these scams when it comes to your parishioners, is that there's no way to actually stop scam emails from coming completely. These scammers are good at what they do, almost too good sometimes, and they will always find a new way to get you. They'll always find a new scam to try, be it the Nigerian prince or the email from your bishop or or the car's extended warranty. But the good news is that there are a lot of ways to slow down these emails and stop these scammers from targeting other people. So let's talk about that really briefly. Some of y'all might already know how to do this, but for those that don't, we're going to do a little rundown of the two major email platforms, which are Gmail and Outlook, how to block and also report scammers on those platforms. So a couple things before we talk about that specifically is just to remember that learning to recognize common scams and educating your parishioners and your peers about scams is the best way to avoid them. And learning how to report scams and block accounts is a good way to protect other people. Maybe you've been targeted by the scam already, but blocking the account, reporting it to the host is one way to prevent these scammers from targeting people in the future. I also recommend BCCing contacts as often as possible if you're ever sending emails to large groups. That way, long email chains just aren't visible to a lot of people. And changing passwords for Constant Contact or MailChimp is another way to just sort of avoid some of these scammers accessing your email databases. Unfortunately, like I said, they will always find a way, but being diligent about this is the best way to avoid this happening too regularly. All right, so we're going to talk really quickly about Outlook and just how to block or report these emails. So for those of y'all that use Outlook as your main email platform, you will see right up in the kind of right-hand corner, there are these three dots next to the forward button. And all you need to do in order to block and report a scam account or what you suspect to be a scammer is to click on those three dots and select this security options option. And from there, always mark as phishing first. This reports the email account to your host platform and can get it completely taken down. From there, you can block this email from ever contacting you again, but reporting it as phishing first helps report the email to the system and get it taken down for good. So the same method for Gmail, it's pretty similar. Right next to the reply button, you'll see those three dots and you can report phishing. And then in the exact same section, once you've reported it as phishing, you just follow that same step, click on those three dots and block the account. So that way, not only are you blocking them from contacting you, but you are blocking them or potentially getting the account shut down. So here's what we're going to talk about if you did respond, or you did click on that weird Google site link, or you did send the right Reverend Jose McLaughlin or contact information in order to buy gift cards for everybody. So first of all, just take a deep breath. It's not your fault, and we have all been there. But there are some steps that you're going to have to take to protect yourself and to protect anybody whose information might be saved on your computer or any of your accounts. So the first is just to change your email password as soon as possible. And one thing to really note when you're doing this is to make sure to select, oftentimes if you're changing your Gmail password or your Facebook password, there's an option to log out of other devices. And selecting that ensures that if a scammer has access to your account from California or Alaska or wherever they are, it logs them out of their device that they've logged into your account on. So that is one really important thing to note, because if you don't select that, they can continue being logged into your account even though you've changed the password. So if you shared any kind of additional information, so bank account numbers or credit card info, change those account passwords as well. Also, just contacting your bank and reporting the incident so they're aware of the potential risk. Oftentimes you might have to get a new card. They might have to put a lock on your account, and monitor your statements and your account information really closely for a little while, just to make sure that no fraudulent action is taken. And if you have transferred money or a phisher has taken money from you, you can report the incident to your police. It is theft, and you have to let the police and the bank know, and they will be able to try and do something about it. We probably all heard the horror stories of those who lost their life fortunes to phishers and scammers, which is unfortunately too real. But the truth is, just being proactive and educating ourselves ahead of time is what we have to do. So that'll help prevent us getting to that point. And it's better to be safe than sorry. I know I've said it like 10 times already and we're only 15 minutes in, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. If you are at all suspicious or at all have that weird feeling in your gut, just be really careful, and always email a trusted person or call them on the phone is even recommended. All right. So next we are going to talk about trolls. And for those of y'all who might not be familiar with the word troll, it's some internet slang. So in internet slang, a troll is a person who starts flame wars or intentionally upsets people on the internet. And we probably have all encountered these people. And maybe you've seen this silly troll face meme on the internet, but this is a pretty typical one, represents trolls. So trolls, are they real people or are they bots? The sad reality is that they are usually real people who have too much time on their hands and decide that with that extra time, instead of, curing cancer or, working on the space shuttle or whatever, they're just going to make people's lives miserable on the internet. So we've probably seen them in pretty typical comment threads. You've probably seen trolls on Facebook or like Twitter and YouTube comments. So we're going to talk about 5 signs that you're dealing with a troll and kind of what you can do to shut down this trolling behavior. So first of all, you might be dealing with a troll if they're trying to make you angry. So we've gotten some people trying, just dealing with life on the internet and the reality of digital church and just digital life these days. We've gotten some people, trying to post things on the diocesan page to cause a stir or trying to email us horrible things. And so you might be dealing with the troll if they make really inflammatory remarks like this one, that are really upsetting. They try and start arguments with others. This example doesn't have it, but oftentimes you could see they use a lot of profanity. They just say really vile stuff, just to sort of make people upset. You also might be dealing with the troll if they act really entitled. You've probably seen this too. It's very much the world revolves around me language. Oh, me, me, me. You post a video of, your parish having a nice lunch, and all they want to talk about is me, 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 me. You've probably seen this too. People shutting down other commenters to tearing into other people that are commenting on your video or commenting on your post. And so it's just really frustrating when you see this. And when you're trying to have a friendly or polite kind of discord on your YouTube video, your Facebook live stream, and somebody is there attacking and being really entitled to the other people participating. You probably also seen people exaggerate on the internet. It's a pretty typical thing these days, but all caps, telling people these giant, lucrative excuses, all of these, very upset, and everybody has to know this information, making these huge claims, or especially just sort of very off topic claims when it's a nice video or a nice post. Also, you'll see similarly to kind of acting entitled, a lot of trolls make things really personal. So, calling people ugly or attacking people's characters, bullying on the internet, really tugging at people's emotions and making highly emotional statements that are meant to make people upset, that are meant to, get a response. And last but not least, they usually can't spell. So you've probably seen some, comments that just don't really make any sense. They're trying to say something upsetting and it's kind of weird because it's not written correctly, similarly to how we saw with the scammers. Lots of caps, weird punctuation, lots of weird words. So we probably all dealt with at least a scammer of some sort of regard of these 5 things in the past. And so the best thing to remember is just to always use your best judgment to determine if a troll's comments are hurtful to what you are doing or hurtful to the other people that interact with your content online, and if they need to be deleted. Now, one thing to really think about is not to be baited into responding. I know how tempting it can be when somebody posts something awful and horrible on your page or responds to somebody with something that's really insulting and upsetting. But the thing is, a lot of trolls are doing that on purpose. They want people to respond. They want you to, argue with them back for entertainment. They're bored. And so learning how to just delete it and let it go is oftentimes the best way to handle them coming back. You can also block or ban people who are trolling your accounts if they pose a threat. Or if you're just sick of dealing with them, or if they post once and it's upsetting and you don't want to deal with them ever again, you can block and ban them too. So you can always make that decision as the facilitator or the moderator of a page or a YouTube account. And so here are a couple of different ways to deal with trolls. You can ignore them, you can delete them, or you can ban and block them. And we're going to talk about page moderation barriers next. So these last 2 sections are a little more hefty than the first two. So we'll do this one first, and then we'll take a little bit of a break before copyright, because this kind of goes hand in hand with dealing with trolls. But we're going to talk kind of specifically now about safety features of Facebook and Instagram. And some of these you might be familiar with if you run a Facebook page for your parish, if you have an Instagram page for your parish. So if any of this content or you know already, just hold tight, and we'll move on to copyright after this, but I appreciate the patience as we kind of go through. It'll be a little more specific to these specific platforms. So here's more of what we're going to talk about. So with Facebook, we're going to talk about admin post approval. We're also going to talk about hiding versus deleting comments, and kind of what the difference is, what that looks like. We're also going to talk about banning and unbanning and blocking certain words or setting up a profanity filter on your page. And then Instagram, we're going to talk about private versus public Instagram accounts, the difference between a mention and a tag, blocking accounts, and manual approval of tags. All right, so admin post approval. Pretty much in basic terms, this allows admins of a Facebook page to have control over what guests post on the page. So we have this set up on the diocesan page. Me as a moderator of the page, I can go in and post directly, but if someone else were to say post a horrible, mean thing on the diocesan page, it would not show up to anybody until I or the bishop or Canon Augusta approves it and allows other people to see it. So this is how you kind of set that up. So within your Facebook page, if you navigate to settings, you will be able to visit in the general section, you'll see this visitor posts section. So you'll click here on the edit section. And this is where you can select your admin post approval permissions. So you can review or you can review posts before they're published to the page. You can also check if you want people to be able to allow photo and video posts. You can also completely disable people posting on your page if you want. If you run a parish account and you really just want it to be posting the live stream every week, you can disable that and just have it be you as the moderator. People will still be able to comment on videos. That's different than posting on a page as a post. So disabling posts entirely will not limit people from commenting. So speaking of commenting, we're going to talk a little bit about hiding versus deleting comments and what that means. So hiding a comment from a post on your page, say somebody posts something just, kind of annoying, but it's not harmful. Maybe it's not relevant. You can hide it from the post on your page, meaning that the comment will still be visible to the person that wrote it and their friends, but anybody who is not friends with them will not be able to see the comment. When you delete a comment, on the other hand, it is gone for everybody. The person who wrote it won't be able to see it. Their friends won't be able to see it. It will be gone. So that is a really good idea or a good move for comments that are really harmful, comments that are just a waste of time, comments, that could be really upsetting. And in the case of a comment really being upsetting or really being something horrible that needs, that could upset parishioners, reporting a comment notifies Facebook that this comment was insightful or this comment was harmful. And Facebook knows to watch out for that user. So they can do something such as blocking that account or blocking them from posting on your page or completely shutting down their account. I mean, depending on the severity of the comment. But if somebody gets multiple comment reports, Facebook has the algorithm and the system can see that. So here's how to do it. Now, not that this is a comment we would actually want to delete. This is a very nice comment from our Latino missioner, but say we didn't want to have this heart commented, you would just click on the 3 dots and here's where you can choose between those 3 options. So when you are reporting a comment, you will usually be asked why you're reporting it, and you can tell a little more, this comment was inappropriate, this comment had a legal action, this comment was insightful, but just deleting or hiding a comment is pretty simple. All right. So if you do have somebody who's constantly posting hearts that you don't want posted on your page, you can ban them. So this is really good for if you have, a troll account that has just found your page and has made it their life mission to constantly post things that are harmful or spam you. So when a user is banned, they'll still be able to share content from your page to other places, but they won't be able to comment on anything. They won't be able to like things on your page. They won't be able to interact with it at all. So messaging you, liking the page, that they won't be able to do that. They will be able to share posts. Facebook has some sort of system, and I'm not sure why that sharing is the thing that they've decided is sort of always possible, but you can share even if you're not friends with somebody, you can share even if you're not liking a page. So banning a user won't stop them from sharing something to their personal page, but it will stop them from interacting with your page and interacting with any of your parishioners. And you can always unban people if you decide you want them back down the line. So banning versus removing likers is a little bit different. And we'll talk about how to do both of these things and kind of what they mean. But banning a user, like we said, means they can no longer interact with their page, versus removing a liker means that they've been removed quite literally as a liker to your page. They won't see things that you've posted in their news feed anymore, but they can always go back and like your page again. So if you're really trying to keep somebody from being able to interact with your page at all, they're really harming people, they're really posting inflammatory stuff, banning a user is probably the best move. Removing a liker is maybe better for a short-term solution, but it's not a permanent one. So here's how to do it. Within that same settings section, we're going to navigate there. And from the general section, we will navigate to people and other pages. By the way, I should mention before, I will be sending out all of these slides after, and a recording will be available. So if I'm moving too fast at all, please just let me know, but it will also be available after if you kind of want to go back and brush up on some of these things. And from here, in your people and other pages section, you'll be able to see all of the people who like your page. So you can search for the person specifically. So if you've seen John Doe consistently posting horrible things on your page, you can search for him. And you can also search, if you want to specify your search, you can search for people who like this page versus people who follow this page, or pages that like this page. Say that a page has liked y'all and is posting inflammatory content. You'd have to sort by pages that like this page to find them. That's a little more specific. So most of the time it'll be people who like this page. But just in case you're searching and you can't find the person that you're looking for, this is the best place to go to figure out and find them. And this is this is my mom who likes the diocesan page. She's wonderful and interacts with it in a lovely way, but she said I could use her as an example. So say that Sheridan is always posting horrible stuff on your page. So once you've found Sheridan Taylor, you can click the mark next to their name and click this little gear, and that will give you the option to remove them from page likers or ban them from your page. So the nice thing is, if you want to ban multiple people at once, you can just search them all, check all of their little boxes by their names, and then only have to click the gear and ban them all at the same time. Now I only banned Sheridan, and I didn't actually ban her. So she's still a liker. But that's one way to just keep people who are causing trouble on your page from coming back. So if you are finding that banning specific people is too much of a sort of a process to think about, you can also sort of try and take preemptive measures to protect people on your page or to keep certain things from being posted. So there are two ways to do this. And the first is blocking words on Facebook, and then also using the profanity filter, which is more of an automatic system to recognize commonly reported words, whereas blocking words is where you can select the words that you want to block. Um, so same thing in the general section of your page settings, click on page moderation, and that's where you will be able to block in certain words. So here you have to remove, or you have to select each word individually. So, and you have to block. So if you wanted to block the word idiot, but you also wanted to block the word idiots, plural, you would have to enter both of those individually. So that's one thing to think about. If you do decide to use this profanity, or not the profanity filter, this blocking words, and you want to block certain words, you have to block it both as the plural and as the singular in order for it to get everything. And once you've selected and created all of the words that you want to block from people being able to use on your page, you just hit save, and people will not be able to post those words on your page. So, I mean, I'm sure we can all think of some words we don't want people posting on our nice parish Facebook page. So this is a great way to kind of be preemptive about it. Have to delete less comments. Oftentimes if trolls, get to a page and they can't post the inflammatory thing that they want to post, sometimes they'll give up. So that's kind of a nice way to just sort of get ahead of it, save yourself a little time in the long run. So the second thing that you can do is use the profanity filter. And this is also in general settings. It's right under page moderation. So in the same section. And the profanity filter, like I said, is automatic. Facebook's algorithm kind of determines what words are commonly reported, what words are commonly blocked. And they have this automatic filter. So you can select the strength of the profanity filter. So on the diocesan page, we actually have it set as strong. And it just sort of means, Facebook is sorting out if anybody did try and post with certain words that they kind of target as being inflammatory or as, malicious, they aren't able to post it. So you can do medium or strong, or you don't have to have it on it all. But that's just another way to be really preemptive about keeping people from posting horrible things on your page. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Instagram. And I know that Instagram is a little bit of a newer platform. So with Facebook, that's a lot of parishes have Facebook pages, live streaming on Facebook. Instagram is it's a little newer. It's a little more where the younger crowd is, but because of that, it's equally as important to know, especially because if you do have an Instagram, you probably are dealing with some younger people. And if you have any youth or young adults in your parish, just being really careful about, what is available of them on the internet is one thing to really keep in mind. So first, we're going to talk about private versus public Instagram accounts. Now, most people, if they have a parish Instagram account, it's usually public. And a public Instagram account is just that. So it's public. Anyone on the internet can see your photos and follow you. Similar to a Facebook page. I know that sounds like, oh, anyone on the internet, but the truth is the same with the Facebook page, anyone on the internet. Public accounts also appear more widely. So if you're like searching on Instagram, you'll see public accounts first. If you're familiar at all with kind of the layout of Instagram, there is an explore page, which shows accounts that you might want to follow or accounts that have similar content to accounts that you already follow. And public accounts sort of show up more commonly in that explore page as well. Whereas a private Instagram account means that somebody has to request access before they can see your photos. So the owner of the private account has to approve access to see the account before anyone can see it. So this can be kind of a good thing if you want to, have a private group where you share photos, or you want to, post a certain kind of content. But one thing to note is that if you have a business account, so you want to link your phone number or you want to have your address on there, you can't have a private account. So just kind of thinking about that, and keeping kind of all of these things in mind as you sort of think about if an Instagram account is right for your parish, or how to sort of set up an Instagram account for your parish. So the big question, I guess, is should you be private? And I know we just talked about, oh my goodness, if you're public, everything is out there on the internet, which sounds really big and scary, but it's not as big and scary as it seems. It's the same as Facebook, same ability to access. So having a private Instagram account is not a necessity. Um, I do think from my perspective that having a public Instagram account is better suited for a business or a church, because people can find you and they can see what you're doing and they can look at your photos who might be interested, in attending your church or getting to know you a little better. And private accounts are better used for personal use. So if you do have, a small group within your parish, maybe, a prayer shawl ministry that you help facilitate, and you want to have a private Instagram account to maybe share photos of the different shawls that you knit, that's a good kind of opportunity for a private Instagram account. Whereas I would recommend probably your parish Instagram account being public so that people can interact with it and find you. So with that being said, we're going to talk about creating a public account with safety measures in place to make sure that your Instagram account is safe and protected, even though it's public. So the first thing we're going to talk about on Instagram is just sort of setting up your general settings. So most of settings within within Instagram is available if you click on these three lines, and then way down at the bottom, you will see the settings option. And it's from here that you can access everything like mentions and tags and all of that. So I'll go back to that really quick. Navigating to settings on Instagram, just if you need to take a look, is kind of less counterintuitive than I think it needs to be. So if you are ever confused where to find it, just this sort of walkthrough. So mentions versus tags on Instagram. For those of y'all that use Instagram, this will probably be familiar to you. But for those of y'all that are considering using Instagram or unfamiliar with it, a mention on Instagram is when somebody posts a photo and in the caption they write at your username. It mentions you, people can click on your username and go to your account, but it's different than a tag. When someone tags you on Instagram, similar to when you're tagged in a photo on Facebook, you click on the photo and you can see a little tagged icon on you or on your picture, and that photo will appear on your profile if you are tagged in it. So if someone mentions you, it won't appear on your profile. People will just see that you're mentioned and be able to navigate to you. Whereas if you're tagged, it will appear on your profile. That's the main difference between a mention and a tag. So here's kind of what that looks like in action. So here's a mention. You can see UNCA Episcopal mentioned us in the caption. So they said, we would really love to see you at WNC Episcopal. And you can click on that in the caption and you can go see our Instagram account, whereas a tag looks like this, and they've tagged us in the actual photo, and that shows up on our account in our tagged section. And if any of that's a little bit confusing, we'll have a little chance to chat at the end about some of the specific stuff. But that is kind of what it looks like. That's the major difference. And so keeping in mind, if you want people to be able to tag you in things and those things to appear on your profile or mention you in things. So first we're going to talk about monitoring mentions. So within the privacy setting of settings, you will see mentions. And from here, you can decide who you want to be able to mention you. So for the current way that our WNC Episcopal account is set up, we have everyone is able to tag us, because sometimes people we haven't followed yet want to tag us in something. AVL Today wants to tag us in, oh, this cool thing was happening and we hadn't followed them yet. We do want to be able to see that. We want to be able to get tagged in things or mentioned in things so we know what's going on. But if you feel a little more comfortable being able to have your account mentioned by those who follow, that is one option. And you can also turn off mentions entirely if you feel more comfortable with that. One thing to note is that if somebody does mention you on Instagram, you cannot remove that. Once you're mentioned, you're mentioned. To me, it is a glitch that I really hope Instagram changes soon, because that means people could mention you and stuff that is untrue and you can't do anything about it. It doesn't show up on your account, but people would still be able to navigate to your account from that incorrect mention. So that's just one thing to kind of think about as you are setting up privacy settings. The risk of that is low, but obviously it can happen. And it's something that I hope Instagram fixes and changes soon. Oops. So in the same section within account privacy, you will be able to select tags if you want, and also monitor who can tag you. Now, again, the main difference between tags and mentions is that things you are tagged in will show up on your Instagram account. So the same kind of thing, if you want people who follow you or you follow to be the only kind of people who can tag you in things, you can select that. Or if you want everyone to be able to tag you in things, you can also select that. The nice thing about tags is you can remove them if they are wrong, unlike a mention. So having everybody be allowed to tag you in things is a pretty safe bet. We're also going to talk about manually approving tags, which is kind of just a preemptive measure that you can take if you want to make sure that the photos you're tagged in are photos that you want to appear on your profile without having to go back once you've been tagged in something and untag yourself if you feel like it's untrue or it's not something you want. So within that same section, the tagged section, if you toggle manually approved tags, this will make it so that when you are tagged in something, Instagram will send you a notification. You will be able to see the post that you were tagged in, and you will be able to check yes or no if you want it to appear on your profile. This is something I think is a really great kind of middleman between completely turning your tags off and allowing them from everyone, because it, similarly to the admin post approval on Facebook, this gives you the ability to take a look at what you were tagged in before it appears to anybody else. So that being said, we're going to talk about removing tags and mentions really quick. If you did get tagged or mentioned in something that's false or, inflammatory or rude, and you don't want it to show on your profile or you don't want it to be linked to you. So unfortunately, having mentioned, like I said, mentions on Instagram, unfortunately, you cannot remove. Once you've been mentioned, it's stuck, which is a glitch that I think they really should fix soon. But the best thing to do about that is to preemptively set barriers, such as, like I said, only people who you follow can tag you if you feel more comfortable with that, or blocking a user. If they've tagged you in something incorrectly, you can block them and it will prevent them from being able to tag you from anything else in the future. You can also report the post if you feel like it's really wrong, and the mention, if you've been mentioned, you can report the post and hopefully the post will get taken down, thus eliminating the mention of you. To remove a tag, you can manually untag yourself, which is actually a fairly simple process. So within the photo that you're tagged in and you want to remove the tag from, you just click on those three dots in the upper right-hand corner of the photo and you will see the tag options section. And from there, you can either remove me from the post or you can hide from your profile. So the difference between these two options, removing yourself from a post removes the tag completely. So if, the UNCA Episcopal account tagged WNC Episcopal, and if we just didn't want to show up anywhere, we could remove ourselves from the post completely. We wouldn't be able to navigate to us from the UNCA Episcopal account. Hiding a photo from your profile means that they'd still be able to look at the tags of that photo and see that you were tagged, but it wouldn't show up on your account. So it's kind of a middleman. And like I said, removing a mention is unfortunately kind of more about preemptive measures. So you have a few options, if you're mentioned in something that you believe to be untrue or you don't want to be mentioned in. The first being to set barriers on your account before this happens. The second is if you feel like you can talk to the person who mentioned you on Instagram, and it won't, just be a complete waste of time, you can mention or message them and ask them to remove the mention if possible. You can also block the user and they won't be able to mention you from that point onwards. And then, like I said, you can report the post. And what that will do is if the whole post is gone, the mention will be gone too. So say someone mentions you, for example, say someone posts, at WNC Episcopal is giving away free $100 gift cards. And we're not. And that's false information. We could report the post for false information. So blocking or reporting a user is the same kind of setup as blocking or reporting a post, and I'll show you that in a second. Blocking a user simply means that they won't be able to follow you or view your content, versus reporting a user, similar to how when we were talking about blocking versus reporting scammers on emails, sends a report to Instagram that this user is, up to illegal activity, or this user is posting false information, and it kind of puts their account, can get probation period, it can get suspended or even fully taken down. Restricting a user means that only you and that user can see their comments on your posts. So this is really good, if you have that one aunt who you love, but maybe says things that aren't completely great, and you don't want to completely block her and make her feel terrible, but you don't want anyone else to be able to see what she comments on your posts. So this is kind of a good thing if you have a personal relationship with somebody and feel that you are, in a way, maybe you feel obligated to follow their account, but don't want their comments to show up on your page. So deciding whether to block, report, or restrict is really up to you. Restricting a user you might know in person, but want their comments to be private, or you only want to be the only one to see them. Blocking a user is a really good option for people who are constantly harassing you or posting spam or trying to waste your time or trolling you, like we talked about earlier. And reporting a user is really good if you see somebody who has a fake account or somebody who's posting false or inflammatory information, trying to scam people, trying to take advantage of people. One thing that you might see sometimes on Instagram is fake accounts, and you see this on Facebook too, but fake accounts, you might even see somebody trying to impersonate you. You might see somebody trying to impersonate your parish, and you can report those accounts and report those users so that Instagram knows. So here is how to select from those three options. All you need to do is go to that person's account, go back up to those three dots, and from there you can select report, block, or restrict from the options. And oops, I have the same slide twice. But so just remember to always use your best judgment when you're deciding on safety features. A lot of it can really differ for a parish versus a personal account. So I know in this context, we're thinking a lot about parish and church safety, but these are also important things to note too on your own personal Facebook or Instagram account. Being in the digital world these days, we have a lot about ourselves out there, and just being careful and proactive is never a bad idea in any context. So putting up preemptive barriers can be really beneficial. But also making sure that you know what to do if your account is targeted by somebody who's harassing you or spamming you or, trying to fool your followers is also really important. So I know we just talked about a lot of very specific things and we went through it fast. So I'll have a little chance at the end to kind of chat a little more about this if you have any specific questions. I know Instagram is sort of new and can be a little complicated too. But in the meantime, I wanted to give y'all a 5-minute break before we do copyright, because this is kind of a big one. So I see that it is 7:03. So if y'all want to come back kind of around between 7:08, 7:10-ish, and we'll get started again, that's totally fine. Go grab a snack or stretch. And I'll see y'all then. So now we are going to get into the basics of copyright, and this is a big old thing. So if I'm going too fast at any point, please just let me know. And we're going to kind of go through a lot of different copyright related things. So let's get started. So what is copyright? And this whole section, I have to say, so I took a couple classes in college. In my last semester of college, I took media law, and my professor gave me the hardest time, and poor guy, I probably gave him the hardest time. Oh, why do I need this? And all of a sudden, the moment I graduated from college, all I wanted to do was just go knock on his door and tell him, I'm so sorry. It has become the most important class I ever took, and I use it every single day. So I have written him a long apologetic email for being such a grump since, and really studied my notes since then. So this is going to kind of be this is me, making it up to him years later and running my own copyright course. But we'll talk a little bit specifically about what copyright is. So via the Oxford Dictionary, the exclusive legal right given to an originator and assignee to print, publish, perform, film, or record literary, artistic, or musical material, and to authorize others to do the same. So general rule of thumb in layperson terms to think about what that basically means is that once something exists, be it a song, be it a video, be it a painting, it is copyrighted, and the copyright belongs to the creator unless it's specifically stated otherwise. So if you write a song about minerals, and like I did in the 7th grade, and you sing that song and perform it with your friend, you own the copyright to that mineral song. And so I am the official copyright owner of Smooth Mineral, performed by yours truly in the 7th grade, even though no one else is probably ever going to perform it. But anything that you create, you own the copyright to, just in basic sort of lay terms. So unfortunately, that means no, Google is not copyright free, and neither is Facebook or Flickr or Yahoo. One question I've gotten sometimes is, okay, are Yelp reviews, so photos included in Yelp reviews, are those copyright free? They are not. Are photos included in Amazon reviews copyright free? They are not. Anything that is created has a copyright unless specifically stated otherwise or found in a copyright-free database. And we're going to talk about databases that are huge with tons of stuff that you can find, so you don't have to worry about this. But that's just a general rule of thumb to think about. Google is not copyright-free. So there are a lot of different ways, however, to ensure the right to using material. So even though Google is not copyright free, general Google, you can refine your search on Google or other platforms to include copyright free or licensed by accreditation content, and we'll talk about what all of these terms mean in just a second. You can also contact the copyright owner and ask for explicit permission, preferably written. Having written permission from a copyright owner is really the only way to hold up if you do go to court over a copyright case. Now, all of this, by the way, I don't want to freak you all out. I don't want to scare you. We're going to, be talking about the law and courts and everything, but just as the reality of the situation. So don't let this freak you out. We are going to talk about the ways to make sure that what you're using is safe. You can also use media from a royalty-free database, and we'll talk a little more about what that means, where to find those. You can use public domain work, or you can understand fair use policy and how to use it. So now we're gonna do a little lingo because some of these terms, if you're not familiar with them, you'll hear me using them a lot. And you'll be like, what is she talking about? Licensable by attribution is basically media that can be used but for free or for a fee by giving appropriate credit and under certain conditions. So for example, the diocese uses a lot of royalty-free music or licensable by attribution music, meaning that we can use the music as long as we just put music by John Doe in the description and a link. Royalty-free, on the other hand, is media that is in a large database that is all under one license. So that means you either pay for that one license and then you can access everything in the database, or the license is free and everything in that database is free. It's just all protected under a free license, a license that is essentially paid for by the company that hosts it and you can use for free. And then public domain is media that is not protected by intellectual property laws and is thus owned by the public. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to identify what kind of media is in the public domain in a little bit. But that basically you can use however you want, no license required. So first, we're going to talk about refining your Google image search, because I know for a lot of people, Google is the first place that you go when you're looking for a photo of something or information about something. And refining your Google image search is really the only way to ensure that you are using the media correctly. So this only applies when you're searching directly on Google Images. So you can't assume that media pulled from websites is copyright free. So if you see an image on a website, you can't, pull that and assume that it's copyright free. This is only if you're directly searching on Google Images, and I'll show you a little bit of what that means. So here I am. I wanted to find a nice photo of St. John's Flat Rock for the website. So here I am in Google Images and I searched St. John's Flat Rock. And I got all of these photos and they're all beautiful and I love seeing them. And I really want to use some of them, but how can I ensure that they're copyright free? The thing is, Google image search is not, but there is a way to sort images by copyright-free images or licensed by accreditation or attribution images. So what you do right here is you select tools underneath the search bar. And from there, you will be given a couple of different options, size, color type. The one we want to focus on is usage rights. So if you select usage rights, you will be able to sort by Creative Commons licenses or commercial and other licenses. So one thing to note, if you are looking for a photo to use for an advertisement or any kind of commercial purpose, so a fundraising campaign, or you're wanting to use it in an art piece that you're going to sell, you have to select commercial and other licenses. If you're just trying to look for a photo for the newsletter or one to put on the website, you can search Creative Commons licenses and you'll be fine. But if you do plan to use a photo at all commercially, at all to make money, sorting by commercial and other licenses is the option that you'll need to select. So for this example, we're just going to search by Creative Commons licenses, which is just a general license. And as you can see, now that I've clicked on Creative Commons, my options are a lot more limited. Some of them probably aren't even relevant, but I do see a photo that I quite like. And it's this one, the inside of St. John's. So I clicked on it and you'll see here in Google, you are given license details. So in order to figure out how to properly license this photo, you're going to have to click on license details to find the information that you will need. So for example, this license is a CC by SA 4.0 license. So that's what it's telling me. So I am free to share and adapt. We're going to talk a little bit about what these different licenses mean. And I know I might sound like I'm saying a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. There are going to be a lot of words on the next slides, but like I said, I'll send these slides out to all of y'all and you're welcome to kind of take a look and familiarize yourself. So there are 6 different main Creative Commons licenses. I have them here by kind of the most flexible to the least flexible. So a CC BY basically means that you can use it however you want, even commercially. You can remix it, you can adapt it, you can build upon the material and paint things blue and add, a picture of yourself in the middle going like this. And kind of as you work up the list, it allows for less and less freedom. So for example, as we get onto this page, and I don't want to sit here and bore y'all with having to look at all of these specifically. I'll give you just a second if you want to kind of take a little look. But kind of as we work up the list, we get to basically, okay, you can use it as long as you credit it, but you can't adapt it. You can't remix it. You have to use it as is. So that's just one thing to be really sure of when you're wanting to use a Creative Commons media piece, is being familiar with what these different licenses are, and what you need to do to just make sure that you credit it correctly and use it correctly. So I'll switch to this page really quick, and we can come back here at the end if we need to. And so basically, these are just sort of from most flexible to least flexible. So here is how we are going to credit our photo. And this is how you're going to figure out how to credit it correctly when you're working through Google Images. So I can see that this photo is via the Wikimedia Commons. Google will show you where to access the photo. So this is where the image is hosted, and this is where I will get the correct information to make sure that I properly credit this photo and provide the correct attribution. So when I click into the Wikimedia Commons, I can find all kinds of information. I can see that the author is CTT956. I can see the date that it was taken. I can even, one thing that I love personally when a photo is hosted on Wikimedia Commons is that if I click use this file on the web, which you can see right here, it actually gives you the whole citation. This isn't always the case, but if you do have an image hosted on Wikimedia Commons, that's a great kind of perk to that, is they give you the whole citation. But in case that doesn't happen, here is how you correctly cite an image via Creative Commons and make sure that it's attributed correctly. First, you have the author. So I had CTT956, and then you put the license type. So ours was the CC BY-SA. Then you have to link to the license. So the creativecommons.org/licenses, where that page that it opened up when I clicked on license information. And then I just have to make sure to write the source. So via Wikimedia Commons. I know that seems like a lot of steps just for one image off of Google Images. And I promise the steps become a little more intuitive as you kind of get used to this. But in case you don't want to constantly be having to cite images correctly, do all of this citing and learning about different kinds of licenses, well, then we'll talk about royalty-free databases and everything. But what if you see the perfect image on Google Images before you sort by Creative Commons and you really, really want to use it, but you don't, but it's not in the Creative Commons section. So really, your only surefire way is to contact the copyright owner and ask for permission. This, is a whole process. Sometimes the copyright owner isn't listed. You don't know who owns it. If the copyright owner is listed, you can contact them. You can say, I found your photo. I really want to use it on my website. What would I need to do? What I need to pay? What I need to cite you? But if they say no, you can't use it. And if they don't say anything, you still can't use it. So that's just one thing to think about. You find a photo that's really perfect, it might not be quite as perfect as you think if it's not actually licensable. So I know that was like a lot of steps for a single photo. So there are definitely ways to sort of just have a large database of photos that you can use without having to go through that whole Creative Commons licensing and citing steps. And these are databases. So there are a couple different kinds of databases, paid databases. There are licensable by attribution databases, which is the same process we just did. It's just a database where you can sort by lots of photos like that, and they'll give you the citation. Royalty-free databases, which is basically where everything is protected under one license, that you can purchase the license, or if it's a free license that's paid for by the license owner, and then there are just straight up free databases, free photos to use, free videos to use, free songs to use. So here are a ton of options for those, and some of these you might already be familiar with. My personal favorite, these are photo and video databases that basically just have thousands and thousands of photos and videos that you can use completely surefire, stress free. Lots of these you don't even have to credit. So Unsplash and Pixabay are all protected under one license. Pexels and Cover the same way. It's all under one license. So everything is free to use without having to credit. It's always a good habit to get into to practice crediting people. But all of these databases don't require it. Then there are paid databases, so you can kind of pay for the same experience. So Shutterstock, you pay a monthly fee to access their whole database of photos and not have to worry about accreditation. Same with Adobe Stock. And then probably some of you are familiar with Canva. I put Canva in this paid database category just because it has a paid option. But Canva is a good example of this, of a database of lots of photos and graphics that you can use. And there's the paid option, which basically just gives you access to more photos and icons to use on your graphics and everything. So here's kind of an example of what this looks like in action. And I would definitely recommend, if you're unfamiliar with some of these sites, checking them out after this webinar and kind of just perusing through. Unsplash is my personal favorite. Those of you who get the diocesan newsletter pretty much every week is a new, just pretty photo from Unsplash. And I feel completely stress-free about using it because all of these photos can be used without any kind of accreditation. They're high res, they're great quality, they have thousands of everything. And basically most of the sites look like this, where they have a search bar and you can just search for what you need and get photos or videos on. So I would search for Blue Ridge Mountains, for example, and get all the photos that they have of that. So music databases are kind of the same thing. I will warn you, musicians more often ask for accreditation. So be really careful of noting accreditation carefully on these databases. These are usually large databases, but when you download a song, it will say, okay, in order to use this song, you must put such and such in the description. The YouTube audio library, for example, has a lot of songs that are completely free to use without accreditation, but some songs that you do have to credit in order to use, and it'll notify you if you're trying to download a song that has accreditation and just say, okay, if you're going to download this, make sure to put this in the description of your video in order to use it. Bensound is another one that we love at the diocese, but they have just a regulation that if you are going to use the song, it's free to use. You just have to put music from bensound.com in your description. Free Music Archive, similarly to the Creative Commons database, is a lot of different Creative Commons type licenses like we talked about. So be really careful when using the Free Music Archive that you're citing everything correctly. Freesound and Pixabay Music generally are just completely free to use. So those are great databases if you really don't want to have to worry about putting anything in the description of your video at all. I know that a lot of parishes use YouTube, and YouTube has a really great audio library. This is probably my favorite music database. Because not only does it have music, but it has sound effects. If you're making a fun video for your parish and you want to doing, or you're making season 2 of Quarantine with Bishop Jose and you want a shower sound or whatever it is, this is a great place to find all of the sound effects that you are looking for. I really like it because all of the videos that at least we make at the diocese, we know we're putting on YouTube. Most of the music is just completely free to use without any accreditation from YouTube Audio Library. I still try and practice, putting, name of the song, who it's by via YouTube Audio Library, but most of it doesn't require any accreditation, which just takes a little stress off of my shoulders, knowing that I've used it and I'm good to use it. Some of it will ask for accreditation, but what I really like about YouTube Audio Library, like I said, if you click to download a song, it will tell you, okay, in order to use this song, here is exactly what you need to put in the link in your bio. Plus, it has a huge, huge database. So I'm going to show you how to access it because it's kind of in a weird place. It's a little bit non-intuitive to get to, but for parishes that use YouTube and make YouTube videos, I highly, highly recommend this resource. So from your YouTube channel, just click on your profile photo in the upper right-hand corner, and that's how you access, the drop-down menu with the YouTube Studio and everything. And from this drop-down menu, select YouTube Studio. And from the YouTube Studio, there's a bar on the left-hand side. And if you scroll all the way down, that is how you get to the audio library. Why the audio library is in its own separate website, I don't know, beyond me. It has a little bit of a non-intuitive process to get there, but this is how you get there. And it's all sort of connected through your YouTube channel, so they know what you've downloaded and everything as well, which is great. And once you're in the YouTube audio library, it is so awesome because you can sort by genre, you can sort by length of song. If you know you're going to have a short video that's only a minute, you can sort songs by, songs that are a minute long. So for example, you can sort by track title, you can sort by a certain artist if you like. There are a lot of artists I've just sort of ended up knowing make good music. One thing to note with any of these databases is, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of content out there. And so, sorting through is a long process sometimes. And that's why I really like when I can kind of refine my search the way you can with the YouTube audio library. So this is something that I highly recommend to parishes, especially parishes. I know a lot are using YouTube. And if you are making any videos besides your live streams, or even looking for just fun music to have in your live streams, this is a great way to do it and not worry about getting any kind of copyright strike on YouTube. So last, we are going to talk about public domain. So I'm going to do another little description, a little definition. But the term public domain refers to creative materials that are not protected by intellectual property laws, such as copyright, trademark, or patent laws. The public owns these works, thus the public domain, not an individual author or artist. And anyone can use public domain work without obtaining permission, but no one can ever own it. So this, similarly to those royalty-free databases we were just talking about, if you can find public domain databases, you can just use it all. No accreditation necessary, no permission necessary. It's owned by the public. So it's owned by you and kind of not owned by anyone at the same time, if that makes sense. So what falls under copyright or public domain? So the first one, and usually the biggest one, is that the copyright has expired. So as of 2021, any work from 1925 and before is public domain. So a song that was recorded in 1923, you can use it. It's yours to use. It is public domain at this point, and every song will become public domain at some point. So if you really, really, really want to use, Baby by Justin Bieber, which was released in, I don't remember, 2008, you just have to, wait until 2108, and then you can use it. And then you can use it. You'll be fine. Or I think it would be 2111 or something like that. But if you want to wait that long, you can use it without having to worry. So another reason that something might fall under public domain is that the copyright owner has failed to follow copyright renewal rules. It's also common sometimes that copyright owners will just deliberately place things in public domain. They want people to use it. They want people to be able to express themselves creatively, or copyright law does not protect this type of work. So an example of that could be, okay, I invented this refrigerator and I think my refrigerator is so cool and I want to copyright it, but that's more of a patent thing anyway. But copyright could not, I couldn't copyright my refrigerator, for example. So there are plenty of public domain databases in the same way that we talked about those royalty-free free databases. And the great thing about public domain work is that it can be used for both commercial and non-commercial purposes. So you can use public domain media to advertise. You can use it in a video on YouTube that you monetize. You can use it, to raise money, use a fundraiser. Here are a couple that I really like. The Moving Image Archive is massive. Thousands, maybe even millions of videos that are all public domain. The Prelinger Archives is a little bit easier to sort through, similar to the Moving Image Archives. It's a subset of the Moving Image Archives. It's just a little bit more refined. And then Pond5 is also good public domain footage. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about fair use. Fair use is a little bit complicated. It's a little bit of a gray area. So it might be a little funky. If you have any questions as we go through, just kind of keep them in mind. But fair use is a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyright protected works in certain circumstances. So say you really want to use Baby by Justin Bieber, I'm going to tell you how you can do it. And there are 4 factors for determining it. So number 1, purpose and character of use, nature of the copyrighted work, amount and portion used in relation to the copyrighted work, and effect of the use upon the potential market or value. We're going to talk about all 4 of these and kind of go through them. So we're going to do a case study in order to do that. And here's the case study I came up with. Say that you want to use a short clip of the song Don't Stop Believin' by Journey in a video to inspire your congregation to keep on believing. We've been apart for a year, keep on believing. So you want to use only a short segment of the song, around 20 seconds, and you want to have people in your congregation singing along to the song. So singing along as it plays in the background. And the main section that you want to use is the chorus. So can you use the song in a video? Let's discuss. So first, we're going to look at the first factor, fair use, and that is purpose and character of use. So you have to take a look at how the copyrighted media is being used and for what purpose. So if you were to go to court for a copyright case, courts are generally more likely to find education and nonprofit use fair use. So as churches, we do have a leg up there in that, most of the time we're not trying to make money off of things, nonprofit and educational purposes, and transformative use often is often considered fair. So transforming or adapting or creating a remix of a song. So let's look at our case study and let's talk about some factors in our favor in this case, which is that nonprofit use. We're not using the song to raise money. We're a church. We're also transforming the song. We're having people singing over it in a way we're remixing it. So those are both 2 factors in our favor when it comes to fair use. So now we're going to talk about nature of the copyrighted work. So the degree to which the work that was used relates to copyright's purpose of encouraging creative expression. So this is a little bit confusing to think about, but more imaginative work, such as songs and like movie scenes and all of that, are already pretty creative. And so they are less likely to actually support a claim of fair use than factual work. If that makes, there's more room to be creative in something that was already non-fictional or not as creative, such as a nonfiction piece of work or an article or a news article. So factors in our favor is that we are trying to be creative. We're using this popular reference. But a factor not in our favor is that we're already using a more imaginative work, which is the song, versus trying to create something really imaginative out of something more fictional, more non-fiction and everything. So the next thing to think about is the amount and portion of the copyrighted work. So this is quality and quantity. You are more likely to be able to use fair use if you're using a small portion of a larger work. So 30 seconds of a 2-hour long movie is a teeny tiny little blip of that movie. You're more likely to be able to argue for fair use in a situation like that. But there have been instances where a small portion is deemed against fair use because it's the heart of the work. So especially when using songs, this is important to think about because, for example, in our case study, "Don't Stop Believin'" is the section that you want to use. And one could argue that's kind of the heart of the song. The song is "Don't Stop Believin'." But the good news is we're using a small portion of the song, 20 seconds of a 4-ish minute song. And last but not least thing to think about is the effect on potential market. So is this going to harm the future market for this media? Are we hurting sales of the copy? Are we hurting the creator? Even if this blew up and it became viral, would we be hurting people who want to buy Don't Stop Believing on iTunes? And I think in this case, there are a lot of factors in our favor. This is intended for a small audience. I mean, you can never truly control on the internet what goes viral, what doesn't. But it's not intended for a giant audience. We're also remixing the song. So this remix of everyone singing "Don't Stop Believing" is not going to, impact people who want to buy the original "Don't Stop Believing." And thus we have that in our favor. So can we use the song? And I would say yes. Now, I know we talked about a couple of things that, were not in our favor. And the truth is, with fair use, there's no such thing as a perfect example. It's always a gray area. But I think it's important to kind of go through these 4 things and think about it. And overall, in this situation, I think that we have more in our favor than not so. So we're transforming the song. It's nonprofit use. It's a small portion, and it's not going to harm the future market. But I just urge you, when using fair use, to always just proceed with caution. Use your best judgment. Nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to fair use. But that being said, I like to believe most of the people on the internet aren't horrible, mean trolls who will be upset about a church singing "Don't Stop Believing" for 20 seconds. So just use your best judgment and always keep in mind that nothing is ever truly guaranteed when it comes to fair use. So we're going to talk really briefly about licenses. I'm sure as churches, y'all already know plenty about this, and we've been dealing with this for the last few years, even before the pandemic. But having a license for live streaming is really important. And it's really, really important that if you live stream, you have the correct kind of license. So we're going to talk briefly about different types of licenses. And now we're talking about one licenses, CCLI, that kind of license. So we're going to talk about copyright, streaming, and event licenses. So a copyright license is providing the legal coverage for all the typical copying activities that assist congregational singing. So this is if you are printing music, you're printing music in bulletins, you're translating songs, anything like that. You need to have a copyright license in order to do that. Most of the time, copyright license is sort of the basic one that you can get. So if you have CCLI, if you have one license, you probably have a copyright license. But if you are printing any kind of music, projecting music, you do need to make sure that you have a copyright license. The big one in the pandemic world is making sure that you have a streaming license. So if you are going to post live recorded worship services, or live stream, you need to make sure that your license covers streaming. And this is usually an additional license. So just having a copyright license is not going to cover your church if you do decide to live stream. So you can usually purchase this alongside a copyright license, or a lot of one licenses, thus the name kind of covers everything. But I always recommend to parishes to really just double check the fine print of your license agreement and make sure that it covers streaming. The last kind of license that you might encounter when you're dealing with one license in CCLI is an event license. And oftentimes you will need an event license if you are hosting a large event. So a convention or anything like that, making sure that if you're hosting and streaming for a specific number of people, you may have to purchase a larger license. Event licenses can also be short-term licenses. So if you plan to only live stream for a weekend or only live stream for a week-long conference, an event license might be the right choice for you. So the biggest thing, I know this section was brief, but the biggest thing to remember is that if you do plan to live stream your services, you just really have to be sure that the license you purchase covers both copyright and streaming. So, in the pre-streaming days, copyright is really all that we needed in order to print, in order to project. But now that a lot of church services are happening virtually and being streamed online, you just need to make sure that your license covers streaming. And always just be sure to note licensing agreements. So if you have to attribute your license when you post a video with music in it, how long it lasts. So, some licenses last a year, some last 2 years. Also, a big thing is how many people your license covers. So if you have a general turnout of 200, but your license only covers 100 people, you are going to have to purchase a larger one for live streaming. All right, so that was a lot of information, and I know it was all really fast. But I just really know we covered a lot of things. We talked about a lot of seemingly really big, scary things, but I don't want that to be the big conclusion of this. I don't want technology to scare you. I know we have to talk about all of this stuff going forward, but I really believe that technology is an awesome resource. And I think we've all seen that this year, I don't even know what we would have done this year without it. And I'm so grateful for it in the sense that all of a sudden, we can have people attending church that weren't able to attend before, and we're able to connect with each other in this horrible year, and really challenging year. And for that, I'm so grateful. And I think just a really big thing is just learning to keep yourself and your parish safe is a really important part of being church in this new digital age. So just keeping some of these things in mind as we move forward. If they're new to you, they'll become less new. They'll become, more instinctual. And we are all in this together. So that being said, I'm always here if you have questions. I know we covered a lot and some of it might be really confusing. So you are always welcome to shoot me an email, to call me at the office if you have a question as you're going forward and doing any sort of media related thing for your parish. And I'm happy to help. That's what I'm here for. So thank you all so much. Well, y'all have a wonderful night and a wonderful rest of your week.